It has been said that friendship is the mirror through which we come to see ourselves more clearly, for better or for worse. Let's talk about the company you keep on today's episode of the Playing with a Purpose podcast. All right, welcome to the Playing with a Purpose podcast, where we explore topics related to the moral development of collegiate athletes and young people as it relates to character, responsibility, and purpose. I'm your host, Matt Barker, and today I'm excited to have the youth minister from the Estes Church of Christ, Mr. Seth Stewart, with me on today's episode. Seth, welcome to the program.
Thanks. Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Seth and I go way back. We worked at Freed Hardeman. I still work at Freed Hardeman, but back when I first came back here in 2013. Seth and I worked in the financial aid office. We have plenty of stories we could tell you from working there, but we can save that for another episode.
Yeah, those are good times. Financial aid. So if you got some scholarships during those couple of years, I don't know. Maybe don't thank us a little bit. Maybe thank us or don't thank us, depending on your experience. We experienced everything in that office. So good, bad, and people upset with us, people happy with us. So definitely it was good coming back here. That was the first job that I had. Got to work with Seth and has become one of my good friends. So I've known him for quite a while. And now Seth is, as I mentioned, the youth minister at the Estes Church of Christ here in Henderson. Seth has a lot of experience with working with young people, both at the college level as a college minister when he was at Henderson, but also now as a youth minister at Estes. So I thought he'd be a good one to talk about the topic that we're going to explore today, the company you keep, talking about friendships and how that influences our character development. Seth, before we get into the episode, for those that might not know a little bit about you, go ahead and tell us a little bit of background information where you are today. Sure. I grew up in Jackson County, Tennessee, which is close to Cookeville. Graduated from there, came to Freed Hardeman, was here from 2007 to 11, and graduated and got a business degree in marketing. And so I was able to use that for several years, as we talked about, a financial aid office, and that's where Matt, you and I met and worked for a couple of years together, and got married to my wife, Kaylin, right after graduating. Met here at Freed Hardeman and worked at financial aid for 7 years. And then for a little bit of that, also was the college minister at Henderson. And then for the past 3.5 years, have been at Estes as the youth minister. And so, just in general, a lot of experience, I guess, with young people, either helping them through financial, but also college level ministry and now youth ministry.
Yeah. So you've seen this from all different parts of people's lives, as far as when they enter college, as they're entering a youth group, which can also be a big transition as well. So when we think about this idea of the company you keep, a lot of the things that happen in our life are influenced by those we surround ourselves with. So that's kind of the idea of this episode, is the company you keep, how friendships, people we surround ourselves with, can influence not only certain things about our life, but definitely character, moral development, and all those decisions that we have to make. So why do you think friendships are such a big influence in shaping a young person's character?
Friendships are huge. There's an adage out there that you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around with the most. And I'm not sure how accurate that is, or if there's any proof behind that, but it sounds correct. For everyone listening, if you think about those 5 people that maybe you hang around with the most, you're going to be into the same things. You're going to maybe even dress similarly. You're going to go to the same things. You're going to, the way you talk, the way you treat other people even, and so on. And that's for better or for worse for the people you associate yourself with. And who we choose to be around absolutely shapes our character. And the word choose there, I think, is appropriate, because it is absolutely a choice.
Yeah.
The people you hang around with, maybe outside of your immediate family, like your parents and your siblings, you can't really choose them. You might, if you could, you might not want to be around your sister or your brother all the time, but you're kind of stuck with them. But outside of that, it is a choice who you choose to be with, and that's going to shape your character.
Yeah, and a lot of the identity of people, we talk about that word identity and how that needs to, we need to strive to have our identity rooted in Christ. But a lot of people have their identity shaped by who they surround themselves with. So as you mentioned, that can be very good. Sometimes that can be not so good, depending on who you're surrounding yourself with. And the things that shape your life can be shaped by those that you're around. So if you around people that are doing negative things and things that are going to get you in trouble, then your identity, you kind of go down a certain path. And if you're surrounding yourself with good people, you kind of go down a better path, right? So they have a big influence, not that they're the main reason why you do things, but they definitely have, I would say, a big influence on that. Let's think about some Bible. You're a youth minister. You deal a lot with, teaching the Bible and different things to young people. So what does the Bible say about the role of friendships in our personal growth?
It actually has a lot to say about friendships and the people that you choose to be around. And so it says a lot, but you can also see a lot of examples of just people from a long time ago living this out. These are real stories of real people who lived lives just as we are and did good, did bad, made mistakes. So you can see these things. But a couple of scriptures, Proverbs 13:20 says, "Whoever walks with the wise will become wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm." Kind of goes back to who you choose to be around. That's kind of what's path that you're going to have. And then 1 Corinthians 15:33, one that maybe a lot of people have heard is, "Do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts or ruins good morals." And so don't want to spend too much time on the negative side of it, because there's a lot of positive in who you choose to be around. But you have to acknowledge that. And the 1 Corinthians verse there implies that you have good morals, that they're there. But just the simple fact of being around the wrong company can ruin that. And so kind of the negative side of it. But on the positive side, there's a lot of wisdom in Proverbs about friendships. And Proverbs 17:17, a friend loves at all times, but a brother's born for adversity. Somebody that's close to you, that they are there for you in the hard times. 27:17 is iron sharpens iron, as one man sharpens another. So, if you're a strong piece of iron, you're not going to be sharpened by, if you got a friend that's a piece of rubber. I don't know.
Right.
You got to have somebody else that's strong, that
like-minded,
had same values as you have, striving for the same things, and that you're only going to make each other better. And then Ecclesiastes 4:9-12 talks about how two are better than one. How if somebody falls down, you got somebody to pick you up. And it's not good to be alone. It's not good to just be yourself. So just some wisdom there from Scripture about how we are stronger together.
And I think it's funny because the scriptures you mentioned, other than the Ecclesiastes one, I had those three written down. It was the 1 Corinthians 15:33, Proverbs 27:17, Proverbs 17:17. And one of the ones that kind of stood out to me when I was reading it is, especially in today's world, is the kind of the consistency. When we think about friendships, we want friends that are going to be consistent, not people that are going to act one way one time and then a couple days later they're going to act like they don't even know who we are. We want consistency, and that's kind of goes back to Proverbs 17:17. A friend loves at all times, right? Even when things are good, when things are bad, they're going to be there, and you need that consistent person in your life. And I think that's really true for friendships. In your experience with youth ministry and different things, how big is consistency?
It's huge. Loyalty and consistency is big, especially for young people. They need consistency, and so it's big to have somebody who's a constant in their life, somebody to depend on. Yeah,
mentors and things like that as well. I would assume. So what advice would you give to students? You're in youth ministry, so you probably mainly deal with high school age, maybe junior high age, as they enter the youth group, but also you've had experience with working with college students as well. So maybe across the board here, what advice would you give to students when they realize maybe a friendship is pulling them maybe on the wrong path, in the wrong direction?
That's a tough one, because friends are hard to come by.
Yeah.
And when you sense that a friendship is maybe leading down the wrong path, and you see that it's influencing in a negative way the things that you are choosing to say and do and how you treat people, you don't want to think that. You don't want to see that and admit it. And I think this is especially difficult for younger people, because so much can change developmentally within a person, say from first grade to 12th grade.
Yeah.
Let's say you become friends with somebody at a young age, first, second grade, and for years you have built up a camaraderie and a trust and this friendship, but then things start to change, right? Like as they mature and hit teenage years, and a lot changes. And so it's easier, I think, when you make friends as an adult. So like as we talked about, we met 12 years ago in a work setting and became friends. And then, of course, people can change and mature as adults, and you hope you always are improving. But you're pretty much the same guy I knew 12 years ago.
Likewise, yeah.
Right. And so, once you become friends as an adult, you choose that good friend if you're looking for a good friend, and then more than likely they're not going to change much. But that's tough as a kid, because you make friends at a young age, and then things can change, and they can start doing things that are not great, and you see that leading yourself down the wrong path. And so it's hard to admit that and to change course.
Yeah, and you kind of want to, if you know them, someone that you've known for a long time, even though they might be taking you down the wrong path, you don't want to give up on them in some way where you're like, I'm just going to abandon them. You want to kind of help them along. And sometimes that can cause you to still kind of be on that bad path, because maybe your motives are good in trying to help them, but you're still kind of caught up in some of the things they're doing. So that can be a challenge as well.
Yeah, some advice I would give coming off of that would be, to not abandon the friendship right away if you see that, because you're a friend to them as much as they are to you. And so try to help them. Don't shy away from the issue. Don't be passive. Be proactive about it. And we see at least two examples of this in Scripture. Of one with Nathan and David. Nathan the prophet goes to David after he has done some bad decisions in his life, and he kind of tells this story, a way of just getting David's attention of, hey, this guy was wronged, and then David gets all angry about it, saying, yeah, this man should be punished. And then the famous line, Nathan's like, well, you're the man, you're the one who has done this. And then in Galatians chapter 2, Paul is recounting how he had to confront Peter. To address an issue that was going on. Peter was showing favoritism to a group of people when he shouldn't have. Paul addressed him in person, and so I think that's something we can learn as well, is not talk about it with a bunch of other people, not by text or on social media. Talk to the person in person.
Face to face.
And in both cases, I think that we see the friendship stayed intact. And both men, David and Peter, when they were confronted with this, felt bad, felt sorry for what they had done. And I think so many times we think that if we do bring something like that to a friendship and bring something up like that, it's jeopardizing the friendship. And it may, but you got to do the right thing and help your friend, help yourself. And more than likely, it's going to only strengthen the friendship, and they'll appreciate that you brought it up to them.
Yeah. You mentioned that to not abandon a friendship just because maybe somebody's doing something that maybe isn't right. We need to try to reach them. How big is people such as parents, youth leaders in helping maybe with that a little bit? I mean, a lot of times maybe the person that is in the friendship, it might be a little bit difficult to confront somebody. How much help can it be to have maybe a parent, a mentor, or a youth leader like yourself maybe also helping with that? What are some maybe advantages to having somebody like that in building those friendships a little bit more?
A lot more is caught than taught, I've heard, and I'm realizing that more and more as I have too. I have Silas and Jude, who's 6 and 3, and so I can say all that I want to. They're seeing what I'm doing. So I think as parents and teachers and coaches and people who have a position of authority and a level of influence over a student, we've got to model that ourselves, of choosing good character building friendships, and kids see that, and specifically if they see that going on, they've got more life experience. A kid can go to a parent, a coach, or a teacher and get advice from that. And I think that's something we might talk about a little later, is seeking that is advice from older people. But we think kids can't perceive or understand quote unquote adult things, but they can. Everything that we're doing, they're soaking it up, they're seeing it, and if we're hanging with the wrong crowd that's affecting our choices, young people see that. Yeah. And I saw that as a kid with a father who was making very unwise choices in who he chose to be around and the activities he chose to participate in. Right. And I saw everything. And the best thing we can do is to just build relationships and the trust with young people and just talk to them. Parents and the men at the congregation, other people have asked, like, what can I do? What can I do to help? And I guess say just talk to them. Yeah. Just have a conversation.
Or listen to them.
Listen to them.
Yeah, things what they want to do. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And that sounds so simple, but it's profound. It's just to have a conversation, just to get to know them.
It is good to have those other people. Parents are obviously a good place to go, but also having some other people that you trust in the church, in the youth group, whatever it is, to kind of listen as well. I think listening is a big part in that.
You've got to have that. There's some research out there that says that for a student to stay faithful past high school, they need 5 adult connections, and so obviously that's more than your parents. Yep. And so you got parents can be a very good influence, but you got to have others as well who can speak into your life and that you can go to for things.
Let's get into some. This is a big one. I don't know if Seth, we probably didn't deal with this as much when we were growing up, but a lot of the teenagers now have to deal with social media. It's a big big issue a lot of times. There's a lot of advantages to it. There can also be some disadvantages in as far as our friendships and our identity formation and things like that. So what challenges does social media present for not only the friendships we develop, but also character and things like that?
Man, I could spend the rest of our time talking about, social media and its effects on everyone, but especially young people. And over the last 5 years or so, a lot of research has come out because it's social media, the smartphone, all that's kind of been out for about 15 or so years now, pretty widespread about that long. So we're starting to be able to see the effects that it's having, and it's not looking good.
Right.
There's a couple of books out there, The Anxious Generation, Connected by our brother Joe Wells. That's a really good book that I really encourage parents and students alike to look at to get some detailed stuff on how that's affecting everybody. But if I had a time machine and could go back and change something, there's a lot of options in history, right? But I would maybe just go back and have the ability to get rid of the smartphone and social media. And that may seem insignificant and small things to go and change, but I think the implications would be far-reaching. The world would be a different place. The way people feel about a lot of things about themselves would be totally different. And so it's huge to character formation, and it's tough because more research is showing that young people aren't getting out as much. They're not doing as much. So that's affecting friendship formation because they, quote unquote, feel like they have these friends that are virtual, that are online, that they feel connected, but they're not. And so it's affecting them getting out and just participating in life. And so it's affecting their formation of friendships. For sure.
You mentioned the Joe Wells book, Connected, Parenting Faithfully in the Digital Age. That's the book we're studying in our Bible class right now on Sunday mornings. One of the things he mentions in that book is what you mentioned was friendships. There's a lot of times you have more quantity of friendships because you have so much reach of social media. You can kind of reach out to people from all across the world, but the quality of the friendships aren't as, like you mentioned, they're not as connected, not as deep because it's more of a shallow friendship. And I think that does play a role in, we talked about you need those 5 really close people to you to have success in the different areas of your life. And what we're finding now with social media, it's just you don't have those deep connections. So you have a lot of connections, but not really deep personal ones. And so you don't have those people that we talked about, consistency that you can rely on because they just have tons of other people they're on social media with too. So one of the things in that book he mentions is, we're more connected, but then again, not connected at all because we don't have that personal connection is what he talked about.
So much good can be done. I talked about a time machine, but I don't have that. And so, and I think the genie's out of the bottle. This is not going to be, it's out there. This is not going to be changed. So, we can embrace it, and there's things that we can do. I've seen some of our youth group, they do have social media, but they really only use it for positivity, to put things out there. This podcast, for instance, and other ones that you do, it's just good. The technology we have can be used to put things out widespread and put some positive things out there. But, that's not something that we grew up with, and I'm thankful in a way that our childhood didn't involve all of that. But, when we were growing up, our circle of influence was very small. It was our parents, immediate family, some coaches, maybe teachers,
maybe people that lived nearby, neighbors.
And that was the extent of who kind of had influence on us and who helped us navigate life and shape our character. And those people are still there, but they're competing with thousands of other voices that are trying to help you shape your identity and navigate life. And so you just got to combat that. And maybe this is just a 36-year-old guy talking, and so it's easier for me, but I encourage teenagers, college-age students to bring that circle of influence back down to just local people you can see face to face. I would advise getting rid of social media altogether. But again, old man talking here.
Right.
So that might not be realistic, but you trust me, you would feel a lot better if you did. But just work on it. Work on human connection, face-to-face stuff.
Yeah, and maybe try to focus on some of those positives. Like you mentioned, there are some positives to social media, and you mentioned specifically members of your youth group, they try to use some of those things for positive ways instead of all the negative. So kind of touching on that goes into the next question. How can students, maybe youth group, maybe older than that, be intentional about being a positive influence in their friend group despite all these maybe distractions with social media? How can they maybe be intentional about being a good friend to others?
Intentional is the big word. It takes intentionality for sure. If you're not intentional, you're going to easily slip into a negative, pessimistic attitude that others can have as well. So look for the good in a person and in a situation, give people the benefit of the doubt with what they say, especially if you only saw it online, like or a text. Like I don't like texting a lot either.
Yeah.
Just because there's just so much context and body language and
misinterpretation
can happen, right? So give people the benefit of the doubt, see the positive in people. And I'm not saying I'm the best at this all the time, but oftentimes if I found myself in a group of just people just complaining about a lot of stuff, and no matter the topic, we're on to the next topic, and it's still something negative, I would do my best to insert something positive into the conversation, maybe a different perspective, maybe the person meant it this way, and I know that does not make me the most liked person in the room, and usually it kills the conversation because it's the buzzkill, trying to be positive, not keeping the fun negative talk going. But like you said, intentional is the big word. You just got to be intentional about it.
Yeah. How do you help students navigate? We talked a little bit about peer pressure earlier. The people we surround ourselves with, we're inevitably going to want to do some of those same things just because we're around people that are doing it. So if you have an issue, maybe just let's say for the youth group that you work with, in dealing with how to combat peer pressure and different things that they're dealing with on a daily basis, how do you kind of encourage them to still maintain those friendships while also, not giving into some of those negative things that other people are trying to get them to do?
Sure. And it's interesting because kind of going back to choosing the company that we keeping a kind of a gauge on that, because if you are constantly getting this negative peer pressure from your friends, you might need to ask yourself, do I want to even maintain this friendship? And at the same time, going back to, you don't want to abandon the friendship altogether because you've had years of that building up, and there's a way to have conversations about it. But if there is a lot of negative peer pressure constantly going on, then you have to ask yourself that question. But there's a verse that I use with the youth group a lot, and I bring it up a lot in different situations. But Daniel chapter 1 verse 8, Daniel's a young guy. There's 4 young guys that are mentioned. It's Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And it says young boys, but they did some pretty incredible things faced with peer pressure. But Daniel chapter 1 verse 8 says, "But Daniel made up his mind that he would not defile himself with the king's choice food." So when it comes to peer pressure and what to do when faced with a situation, a decision you have to make, and oftentimes it's a quick decision you have to make, right? Like you don't have time to call your parents or flip open the Bible and look, what should I do here? You have to have already made up your mind, and that takes intentionality on the front end, because already have made your mind up that you're not going to participate. That helps tremendously when it comes to a game time peer pressure decision, is to already have your mind made up. Like there's not really a choice about it. Now, Daniel was refusing food. I don't know many other teenage boys that are going to refuse food.
That'd be a tough one.
So, that's maybe an older example, but maybe bring it up more modern, peer pressure to make fun of and bully people in school, to cheat on a test, to cheat in a game for our athletes. Like insert any number of situations you find yourselves in, just already have made up your mind that you're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And, I think that'll help tremendously when peer pressure situations come up.
Yeah, that's where values come in. We say values are those things that even when nobody's looking, you have these core values that you adhere to, and that's going to be what you fall back on. If something comes up, you're going to have those values in place already, like you mentioned. That's a really good point. What kind of friendships do you think every teenager needs in their life?
They need good friends who will come and talk to them. So this is kind of going back to when friendship may be pulling you in the wrong direction. The friend needs to appreciate that if the friend would come and talk to him. Proverbs again, like this is not some...
Proverbs has a lot of good wisdom.
I'm not some super wise person that's just, throwing down a lot of wisdom and knowledge here. This is, from Scripture here. So Proverbs 27:5-6 says, "Better is rebuke than hidden love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, and profuse are the kisses of an enemy." So you don't just want yes people around you all the time. Like you should see it as a favor that somebody's doing you if they bring something to you. So it's tough to receive rebuke or just have a tough conversation, but that's better. That's better than somebody who is just, this hidden love. And then Proverbs 28:23 says, "Whoever rebukes a man will afterward find more favor than the one who flatters with the tongue." So good to have friends who are going to be honest with you. Accountability.
Yeah, that's the word that was coming to my mind, keeping you accountable.
Right. I've had friends like this, and one specific example in college was a friend who was even younger than me. So that says something to his character of bringing something to somebody that was older than him. But just he brought something to me, and Was it an awkward conversation? You bet it was. But like he brought something and we talked about it, tough conversation. But you know what? I respected him for it. That friendship, going back to it did not disintegrate the friendship. I actually had more respect for him for bringing that to me. And so honesty and accountability, that's the kind of friend that you need. And you did, we talked about several things like loyalty and being consistent.
Consistency.
You need a friend that's your ride or die, that's always there for you. Yeah, so just look for those type of friendships.
Yeah, we touched on this a little bit earlier. I was going to get into a little bit more about mentorship and different things like that. And it's interesting, every church probably does this a little bit differently. At Henderson, we have maybe some programs. We have some deacons that work with the youth that are a little bit older, kind of wide range of ages who works with the youth. We also have a program where some of the older youth group members, they kind of mentor, kind of maybe have certain people that they try to follow up with and different things like that. So what role do you think mentorship or having older, maybe more wiser people that have been through things play in shaping a young person's character? And maybe is there any programs at Estes that you have that maybe models that a little bit?
Sure. It plays a huge role. Like we've got to have friends and mentors that are older. And this goes for people at every age, even you and I. Like we need people that we look up to that have been through stages of life that we have not gotten to yet. We need to seek advice from. Yeah. And so specifically at Estes, we do a couple of things. A big thing is to foster intergenerational relationships. People older, people younger, and we have a thing called Iron Workers, where and kind of our theme versus Proverbs versus
iron sharpens iron. Yeah.
And we have a lot of talented people, men and women at Estes that are good at hobby. They have hobbies, they have skills, they do different things, and we just go to their home or meet at the building or something, and they show us that hobby, they show us that skill, and there's always a kind of a devotional with it that ties into what we're doing and how everything in life can be tied back to that. But what that does is it's not just a fun time of learning something. We've done things of how to change a tire, how to change your oil, YouTube stuff like how to do that. We did judo one night, learn some martial arts stuff, but it makes that connection with an older person.
Right
now, the young people, they might not be scared, I guess, or afraid to go up to that person. They have a connection to go up and talk to them about something. And then I'm sure Henderson has kind of a youth group section, I guess. That a lot of them sit together at a certain thing. Right. So one other thing we do is we call it Operation Branches. And so what we do is it's one Sunday night a month. We purposefully don't sit in that section. We encourage them to go sit with somebody else. It could be an older individual, an older couple. It could be a couple with younger children. Whatever age group you but just don't sit with people your own age. Let's get out and let's meet other people. So those are a few things we do just to kind of foster mentorship and making those connections with older people.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and with the activities you were talking about where you visit people at their houses and they're teaching you something, it's not necessarily about the activity you're doing. It's more about the experience of just kind of being in their home, getting to know them, and whether someone's going to end up doing that activity or same hobby later, it's more about kind of getting to know something about the person that you're visiting and maybe some talents that they have, and you kind of get to know them. And when you see them at church, it's like, hey, you're the guy that does woodwork or whatever it is that you're doing, and builds those connections like we talked about. And it's not these superficial connections like social media. It's like you actually have been in someone's home like they used to do back in the Bible days. You're visiting people in their home and you're getting to know them. I really like that. That's a really good idea.
There's a really good example of just some mentor or seeking the advice of older people. In 1 Kings chapter 12, King Rehoboam has just become king. And some of the people come to him and say, your dad was pretty hard on us. Could you take it a little easier on us? And if you do that, please lighten our load and we'll serve you. And he said, okay, give me 3 days and I'll think about it. And then it says that he sought the advice. He took counsel with old men, people who had been with Solomon, and their advice was to listen to the people, be a servant to them, serve them, speak kind words. Being a servant leader is kind of a buzz term nowadays. It's clearly acknowledged now that is a way to get people to believe in your mission and to follow you, but that's actually pretty old advice. These older men way back then had said, serve these people, speak kindly to them, and they'll serve you. But it says he didn't listen to them. He went and also sought the advice of the buddies that he grew up with, people his own age, and their advice was the exact opposite. They said, make it even harder on the people. Yeah. And, well, I guess you can guess how that turned out, right? Yeah. So it's important to seek the advice of older people. They have been places that you haven't, and That's not to say that your friends who are your age can't give good advice.
Yeah.
Because we talked about the benefits of choosing good friends, but at the same time, life experience matters.
Yeah, you got to listen to the elders and older people that have been through stuff before, for sure. So we talked about this probably throughout this whole podcast, but how can we maybe create youth ministries, create spaces where these positive character shaping friendships can occur? Sometimes it's not always something that we can just say, hey, we're going to do this program and we're going to build some friendships through this program. A lot of times that kind of develops maybe organically, a little bit, like depending on who you kind of enjoy being around. But how can maybe as a youth ministry or maybe even a college ministry, how can we create these spaces where those friendships with the people they need to have friendships with can actually occur?
Yeah, it needs to be a space, and again, model that yourself. Whoever is over that, the youth leaders, and this goes for any like coaches, right? In an athletic section, is to a place where positivity is encouraged, a place where talking about the issues in an open way is encouraged, and what's going on in our lives, it's welcomed. A place where people are loved above all else. And yeah, it's important to have these spaces. And again, you just got to model that yourself. If you're the ones that are welcoming the new people, if you're the ones that are being a servant leader, and they will catch on to that for sure.
Yeah. Anything else we didn't get to, Seth, that you had kind of wanted to touch on for company you keep, friendships, things like that we didn't get to?
I don't believe so. Yeah, these are very good questions, and we covered a lot of stuff. Thanks so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's awesome, Seth. I'm glad to have you on, and I'll have to have you back on for another episode. This was fun.
Yeah, I'll do it again.
All right, thanks for joining us for this episode of the Playing with a Purpose podcast. Special thanks again to Seth Stewart for being my guest this week. Be sure to listen to this episode and future episodes on Spotify or anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can also catch the Playing with a Purpose podcast on the Freed Hardeman Athletics Champions of Character website at gofhulions.com/champions of character and on the NAIA Champions of Character website at naia.org/champions of character. Join me for our next episode as I talk with owner of Sound Mind Counseling, Mr. Taylor Bell, on the topic of social media and self-worth. And remember, winning isn't just about the scoreboard, it's about the character we build along the way. We'll see you next time on the Playing with a Purpose podcast.